Bream fishing with lures has become one of the most popular forms of fishing, and the market has exploded with ultralight spin rods, small spinning reels, and more variations of lures and soft plastics imaginable. It's one of my favourite forms of fishing, and in this video I'll share with you some of the lures and soft plastics in my tackle box that has worked really well for me. This video aims to share some tips, techniques and different brands that has worked for me in recent years. If you would like to see more videos like this, then please leave your comments in the suggestions, and of course don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Well, let's open up my tackle box and have a look inside. Whoa. Let's start talking about soft plastics. Now there are a couple of key items in my tackle box that I have even before selecting a soft plastic, and the first one is scent. Now it's quite a debatable topic to whether scents actually work or not. I've used it out of habit over the years, and I've found species like Bream tend to respond really well to that small scent trail that it creates, especially on tough days when things aren't going so well. Now I've been using S Factor for many years, but there are a lot of really good brands out there on the market. You've got ProCure, you've got Sax Scents, you've got Dizzy Scent. One of the main reasons I've used S Factor is just because it stores in my tackle box so easily. So I don't have another little tub that I'm carrying with me. I basically just store that in there. And again, fish definitely do seem to respond to this stuff. They put particular ingredients into it that just makes the fish go a little bit more aggressive. I use it quite sparingly. If I'm using a curl tail or a paddle tail soft plastic, I basically just rub a little bit into the end of the tail, and that creates just a nice scent trail. And again, it's an optional item to whether you think you need it in your tackle box or not. The next item in my tackle box are Jigheads. Now I like to use HWS Jigheads. Now that stands for Hidden Weight System. Now what that actually means is when you rig up your soft plastic, it covers all of the lead, only leaving the hook exposed. And this makes your soft plastic look really natural, and I find it's less prone to weed and snags. Now these generally start at about 1/12 and then go all the way through to about 1/40. Here's just a little small curl tail grub that I rigged earlier. And you can see it looks really nice in there. There's no unnatural lead that's sticking out. Generally, they're all probably for about $10 for a packet, and you get 5. But for me, something like that, Bream love them, and it's a must-have in your tackle box. The next item in my tackle box will come as absolutely no surprise, and that's just simply curl tail soft plastics, otherwise known as Grubs. Now these typically come in 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch size. Now these are one of the easiest things to use when targeting bream, and they're an ideal choice for beginners. And that's because the action of the tail does all the work. Now these are so versatile. You can cast them out into open water, or you can fish them hard up against structure. Now you can simply slow roll them, or you can do your normal lifts and pauses or double hops, and they all work really well. Now I'll generally fish these with a jig head that's around 1/20th in weight, and move up and down the scale depending on the conditions on the day. And I'll generally fish these with my rod tip pointed down. Now there are so many variations and brands of these on the market. You've got the very popular Z-Man Grubs for good reason. You've got the Squidgy Wrigglers, you've got Pontoon 21 Pillow Grubs, you've got the Berkley Gulp. And again, I've been using these a lot, which are the Savage Gear Pro Grub. Now, a lot of popular colours. Motor oil seems to be the only colour that everyone uses, but there's some other great colours out there as well. You've got UV Bloodworm, there's Pearl White, there's blacks. So just mix up the variations. Again, I like to just use a little bit of scent in the tail and find that creates a really good scent trail. But I think these are generally a must for anyone's bream tackle box. The next item in my tackle box is simply small paddle tails. Ones like these Z-Man Slim Swims. Now generally they come in 2.5 inch size, and the design of these are just so simple, and all they're doing is they're mimicking a minnow or a bait fish. And I find they're almost most effective when you just cast them out into open water and do a simple slow roll, and that paddle tail is just wriggling around, and that really gets the attention of bream. Now, like the curl tails, you can fish these hard up against structure, you can fish them out in open water. They're also very versatile. Again, I like to have the rod tip pointing down when I fish these. Now there's a lot of popular brands on the market. As I said, the Z-Man Slim Swims are very popular. You've got the Berkley T-Tails, you've got the Pro Lure Paddle Grubs, you've got Squidges. I've been using these to great success lately. They're the Savage Gear Slim Minnows. Again, I like to rub a little bit of scent on the end of the tail. Popular colours with these, again, motor oils, very popular. Your whites that look very natural like a bait fish, they all work really well. And for $10 for the packet, you can't really go wrong, and a really good item to have in your tackle box. The next item in my tackle box is one of my absolute favourites, and that's a crank style Hardbody lure. In today's market, most of them are around 38mm in length with these quite chubby rounded heads, and they're all about 3.5 to 4 grams in weight. They all have a double set of trebles, and inside they generally have a couple of ball bearings. That tends to vary a bit, but that gives it some sound and also that weight needed for casting distance. Now, all crank lures have this bit of plastic on the end, which is called a bib. Now that determines the depth that this lure dives down to. So generally they come in mid diving or deep diving. So if I show you this lure here, so this is a deep diving. So this will get you down to about 1.5 meters. Now if I show you the same lure in a shallow diving, so there's a shallow or a mid diving one there, exactly the same, but that will get you down to about 0.7 of a meter. So that's important to know. There's also one other important thing to know, and that's they come in floating and suspending. Now what this means is you cast out your lure, it's going down. Now when you stop reeling, either two things will happen. If it's a floating lure, it will slowly rise to the surface. If it's a suspending lure, once you stop reeling, it will just sit there buoyant at exactly the same depth. So that's really important to know. Now, obviously, what makes these so effective is that constant vibrating action. They are constantly moving in the water, and because of that, I like to have my rod tip pointing upwards so I can actually watch the rod tip, and you'll see the top of the rod tip is just constantly vibrating. I like to also add quite a few pauses on my retrieve, and funny enough, I find that you get a lot of strikes from bream on those pauses. Now these work out in open water, or you can fish them hard against structure, and they work particularly well in the warmer months when bream are actually sitting along the edges in the shallower water. Now there are so many brands of these on the market. You've got the Atomic Hards, which are very good. You've got the Daiwa Prezos. You've got the Cranker Cranks. You've got the Jackal Chubbies. You've got the Savage Gear Fat Heads. You've got the Pro Lure 36 range. You've got the Berkley 3B Fat Puppy Dogs. There's the ecoGear CX range, and even more. Now they all do work. The budgets do vary quite a lot. Some of those start from $10 and the others go all the way up to $25. And you might find different variations on the quality of the trebles or the swimming action. Surprisingly, those lower end ones like the Savage Gear and the Atomics work really, really well. Now there are so many different colors that you can use. You've got shiny colors such as that. You've got natural sort of looking yellows and brown colors like that. You've got pinks. You've got about every variation. I really like natural sort of looking colors, the yellows and browns. That's a sort of style, and that sort of style is definitely something that I would go with. But again, I love crank Hardbody lures. Really fun way of fishing. Bream hit them really hard, and it's an item that I'd suggest you have in your tackle box. The next item in my tackle box are Hardbody minnows like these. Now most of these all have a nice slim profile with a length generally starting from 30mm all the way up to about 60mm. They too have a ball bearing which helps with sound and casting distance, and like a crank they have a bib, but I find most of these are more shallow and mid diving. They too both come in floating and suspending, so you need to make sure that you're checking what works for the conditions that you're fishing. Now these can be very similar to what you'll use like when trout fishing, but they typically have a slightly smaller profile. Now what works so well with these is just the shiny colors and the vibrating action, which really gets the attraction of bream. Now what I'd suggest when fishing these is to really mix up your retrieval speeds and also really mix up your hops and lifts. I find that the rod action that you use can really give these things a lot of action rather than just slow rolling them all the time. Now there's a lot of really popular brands on the market. The one I've been showing you is the Pontoon 21 Crackerjack, which is a really good lure. You've got the Daiwa double clutches, which are extremely popular. This is a Nories laydown minnow, another one that I've caught plenty of bream with. You've got the Atomic Hards, You've got the ever popular ecoGear SX range. You've got OSP Dunk Minnows. You've got Sugar Day Minnows. And you've got some cheaper variations such as the Strike Pro Pygmies. They all work. They all come in a range of colours. I do really like sort of shiny colours, the silvers and golds. I just have had a lot of success with those colours. Price really does vary a lot with the Hardbody lures. I find that they start around the $10 range and go all the way up to about $30. The Daiwa double clutch is around that mid-20 mark. But again, it's really up to you on what you can justify spending. And I think Hardbody lures are a great option for your tackle box. The next item in my tackle box are simply crab imitations. And there's no doubt in recent years there's been one standout, and that's the old cranky crab. Now, this hit the market a few years ago and was an instant success. It's got a really realistic look. It drifts down really naturally. It's got trebles in the claws and they float, giving it some really realistic action. Now, the way to typically fish these is to hit them hard up against structure or in the structure if you can. Let them very slowly drift. Now, these are quite light in size, so they will take a while to get down. So let them slowly drift down and then wind up that slack and basically let them sit there and let the natural current of the water do a lot of that action for you. And that's simply referred to as dead sticking, where you're basically casting out, not doing a great deal, but it's still really enticing for bream. Now, there's not a huge amount of variations out there. As I said, the cranky crab is probably the main player. You do have a lot of other soft plastic ones out there as well. There's the power crab, there's the crusty crab, you've got the Savage Gear 3D crab. They all work really well. In terms of price, there's a real contrasting difference on the market. The cranker crab, well, that goes for about $22, while the competitors, well, they're generally about half the price of that. So it's really up to you on what price point you can justify, but they are really a great item to have in your tackle box. And finally, in my tackle box, I like to have some blades. A little bit like this ecoGear ZX35 with those popular stinger hooks. Now, blades have been around for a long time and they do work really well. A typical profile is sort of 35 to 42 millimeters, starting at around that 1/6 of an ounce. And that's really heavy for a bream lure. And the beauty about that is it allows you to cast really long distances. So that's great when you're fishing a new water system. It's also great in the colder months when the bream are holding that deep water. Now, these can be fished out in open water or they can be fished hard up against structure. They're also a really popular choice when you're fishing from a small boat or a kayak, typically when you can mark up bream on your sounder and basically cast out towards them. Now, what's really good about these is they have a really strong vibrating action. And because of that, I like to have my rod tip pointing upwards and I like to look at that rod tip and just see that it's got that constant action. Now, you can either just slow roll these and you'll feel that action all the time, or you can have a lot of pauses and do those really sharp lifts and you'll feel that really strong vibrating action and then it going down. That also works really, really well. Now, there are a lot of brands on the market. Of course, you've got those ecoGear ZX and VX range. You've got Atomic Hards metals. You've got the Berkley Big Eye blades like that. You've got TT switch blades. You've got Savage Gear 3D blades. Now, they all come in a varying range of colors and sizes. I really do like silvers and golds and sort of that brown sort of style color. I think that works really well. And typically these will be priced between that $10 and $20 mark per blade, but I think they're a great item for your tackle box. Well, there's an insight into the lures in my tackle box when targeting bream. I hope some tips from this video will help you when you're next shopping and stocking up your tackle box with bream lures. If you'd like to see some more videos like this, then please let us know and leave your suggestions in the comments. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'm Alan Benicia from Fishing Mad. Thanks for watching.